Okay, I will be reading in the Circuit Court for the State of Oregon for Multnomah County, TANIA Humphrey, Plaintiff versus Mercy Court Defendant. Complaint, intentional infliction of emotional harm. Amount in controversy $1, subject to mandatory arbitration filing fee authority. Oregon Revised Statute 21.161A, jury trial requested. Factual allegations. During the 1980s and 1990s, plaintiff was an unwilling victim and witness to child sexual abuse and trafficking conspiracy perpetrated by the leaders of Mercy Corps. In October 2019, plaintiff went public with child sex abuse she had endured and witnessed, and in doing so, she harmed the public reputation of Mercy Corps, resulting in the resignation of various Mercy Corps leaders. In May 2020, in an effort to rebuild its public trust under false pretenses, Mercy Corps hired an interrogation group led by the former director of the FBI to systematically intimidate and bully plaintiff with ongoing relentless harassment. Mercy Corps intended to use the guise of an internal investigation to carry out the goals of neutralizing plaintiff's account of the sex abuse she suffered and witnessed at the hands of Mercy Corps executives, board members, and staff, and minimizing Mercy Corps' role in the child sex abuse and trafficking conspiracy in the eyes of the community. From June 2020 to November 2021, Mercy Corps, through its various agents, including the board chair Giselle Cordestani, interim chief of staff Mary Wheat, Free, now Alex Partners, a risk management firm, and Vox, a global PR firm, intentionally engaged in a coercive campaign intended to frighten, belittle, confuse, harm, and quiet plaintiff. As Mercy Corps intended, the intimidation and bullying caused plaintiff severe and ongoing emotional harm. Mercy Corps is just one of a long list of powerful corporate entities that has recently begun using the guise of an independent investigation to minimize executive misconduct, to neutralize witnesses, and to rebuild public trust based on false pretenses. Plaintiff files his lawsuit to hold Mercy Corps accountable before a local jury so the conscious of the community can decide on the record whether Mercy Corps' behavior constituted an extraordinary transgression of the bounds of socially tolerable conduct and exceeded the reasonable limits of social toleration. Plaintiff was born in 1970. She endured years of unspeakable sexual, physical, and emotional abuse at the hands of her father, Mercy Corps co-founder Ellsworth Culver, from early childhood into her teens. Ellsworth Culver and other Mercy Corps affiliated members raped, sodomized, and trafficked plaintiff approximately from 1973 to 1989 through Mercy Corps headquarters, locally, nationally, and to other countries. They also encouraged other men to sexually abuse plaintiff and other girls. This experience primed plaintiff's emotional response to the systematic intimidation and bullying plaintiff later endured at the hands of Mercy Corps in 2020 and 2021. Mercy Corps leaders and staff had been aware of the sexual misconduct, at least since plaintiff internally reported it in the 1990s. However, they decided to acknowledge the misconduct only after the Oregonian published a documentary about the abuse in October 2019. In May 2020, Mercy Corps used money from its nonprofit to pay Free, now Alex Partners, a risk management firm led by former FBI Director Louis Free, with a team of criminal interrogators, ostensibly to investigate the abuse plaintiff suffered, find survivors and perpetrators, to uncover the extent of the abuse, to report to law enforcement and funding organizations, along with other appropriate action. Mercy Corps staff worked with Alex Partners as a team to investigate. In reality, this Mercy Corps team spent approximately 1 year interrogating and harassing plaintiff in order to produce an investigative report for the public that contained false statements, diminished the misconduct, and buried the numerous protected perpetrators connected to and affiliated with Mercy Corps who are still alive and who have unhindered access to vulnerable children. From approximately 1980 to 1989, Ellsworth Culver also transacted with friends, colleagues, and foreign dignitaries abroad to rape and abuse plaintiff and other girls in exchange for corporate favors. According to a source, among those benefiting from Ellsworth Culver's backdoor diplomacy were representatives of the Middle East and Central America. Sometimes videos and photos were taken during the attacks. Ellsworth Culver and his associates also abused other children, including refugees. In the summer of 1980, plaintiff was 9 years old when she witnessed the murder of a similarly aged Thai refugee girl at the hands of Ellsworth Culver and a Food for the Hungry leader. Culver, a lauded founder of prominent international aid organizations, leader in diplomacy, and frequent White House guest, and the other man made the naked girls pose for photos and dance for their entertainment. The men fed the children drugged food. Plaintiff ate very little. Then, while raping them, Culver violently choked both girls while the other man assisted. The Thai girl slipped in and out of consciousness during the attack. After the men were finished abusing both girls for the evening, Ellsworth Culver told plaintiff to take care of, e.g. help, the Thai girl and laid the refugee's body next to the plaintiff on the bed. Ellsworth Culver and the other high-profile individual left. There was nothing plaintiff could do to help the other girl. Culver put the responsibility of the Thai girl's life into the hands of the 9-year-old plaintiff, furthering her trauma by making plaintiff feel that the refugee girl's life was in her hands. The Thai girl was likely dead at that point, yet plaintiff stroked her cheeks, sang to her, and did whatever else she could do in vain attempt to provide comfort. In the morning, it was clear that the Thai girl was dead. This experience primed plaintiff's emotional response to the systematic intimidation and bullying plaintiff later endured at the hands of Mercy Corps in 2020 and 2021. Later, 2 Asian men entered the room. These men raped and abused the girl's corpse. They also urinated on plaintiff. Shortly after, a woman entered the room and brusquely washed away the evidence of plaintiff's body. On plaintiff's body, the Asian men took the Thai girl's body away, presumably to hide evidence of the child's vicious murder. This experience primed plaintiff's emotional response to the systematic intimidation and bullying plaintiff later endured at the hands of Mercy Corps in 2020 and 2021. In 1983, when plaintiff was 12 years old, she became pregnant due to being sexually assaulted by several predators, including a Donald Trump ally and another Mercy Corps leader. The Trump ally and Ellsworth Culver sought to cover up the pregnancy, taking plaintiff out of school, preventing friends from coming to the house, and eventually forcing a miscarriage through forced physical trauma inside her vagina and uterus using hands and a metal fire poker. This experience primed plaintiff's emotional response to the systematic intimidation and bullying plaintiff later endured at the hands of Mercy Corps in 2020 and 2021. Plaintiff was left to suffer by herself after being instructed that her body would know how to take good care of a baby. That choice of words ascribed further guilt and shame to the 12-year-old since she did not understand the nature of the biological process she was enduring. She hid in the woods alone during a rainstorm and suffered a long and painful miscarriage. The combination of severe blood loss and hypothermia created serious health complications. After the birth, plaintiff buried the dead fetus in the woods. The Mercy Corps team's long interrogations forced plaintiff to provide details about the incident, like the fetus's size and other aspects of its appearance. The summer of 2020, Mercy Corps Board Chair Giselle Cordestani and others were informed of the crime, but it appears none reported the forced pregnancy or the brutal attack on plaintiff. Mercy Corps leaders Cordestani, Interim Chief of Staff Mary Wheat, former Interim CEO Beth DeHamel, and board member Iman Dakhil sent plaintiff flowers meant to memorialize and symbolize the baby's death and the murdered Thai girl, validating plaintiff's description of events. To date, neither Mercy Corps' role in the cover-up of the abuse nor the powerful Christian and political figures in the U.S. and abroad who abused plaintiff and other children have been held publicly accountable for their heinous actions. Reportedly, from approximately August of 2020 through May 2021, and to help bury the truth about the incidents and those involved, Mercy Corps convinced plaintiff that naming the other perpetrators in the investigative report would open Mercy Corps, Alex Partners, and plaintiff to several defamation suits. Plaintiff was made to feel like she had to protect them. During the same time period, and others reinforced this statement in discussions with plaintiff. During fact-finding for their so-called investigative report, plaintiff was told that no efforts were made by the Mercy Corps team to interview the perpetrators or associated witnesses that could shed light on the crimes. Instead, the report was apparently designed to bury abhorrent criminal activity to protect Mercy Corps' high-profile board members, staff, and other dignitaries. In May 19, 2021, investigative report claims that the Mercy Corps team interviewed 66 people for the investigation. They do not divulge whom they interviewed. Plaintiff was given no evidence that Mercy Corps team reported the perpetrators' crimes to the proper authorities. The Mercy Corps website describes its mission to alleviate suffering, poverty, and depression, build secure, productive, and just communities, and Mercy Corps has a unique role to play in amplifying the voices of communities around the world. In reality, Mercy Corps executives, board members, and other affiliates created systemic suffering, destroyed the lives of children, and silenced their voices. And in at least one case, a Thai girl's voice was silenced permanently by killing her. From the 1990s to present, Mercy Corps has been aware of the serious crimes against children and should have contacted the police and FBI immediately to perform a real criminal investigation rather than covering it up through expensive hired guns. Since none of these criminals have been brought to justice, it's further evidence that Mercy Corps' effort to hide the truth and protect criminals rather than victims. No law enforcement body ever contacted Plaintiff to investigate, so it appears highly doubtful that Mercy Corps took the legally appropriate action given the nature of the crimes committed. Evidence and testimony from plaintiffs since 1990s and other sources demonstrate crimes and wrongdoing, including items like endangering the welfare of children, failure to report child abuse, conspiracy to endanger the welfare of children, and more. Therefore, it appears that the Mercy Corps board and staff have been criminally aiding and abetting in the commission of a crime, hindering prosecution, and compounding. Mercy Corps' past lip service from 2019 to date also claimed their organization and staff supported her during their investigation. Nothing was further from the truth. Alex Partners is a risk mitigation firm hired by Mercy Corps' East Coast lawyers as a thinly veiled attempt to use third-party credibility to downplay, discredit, and hide the truth of what Plaintiff and other girls endured. Mercy Corps failed Plaintiff while claiming to act in her best interests. Worse, Mercy Corps is guilty of further victimizing and defaming an already traumatized victim. From June 2020 through November 2021, Mercy Corps and its agents mentally abused, manipulated, and took advantage of Plaintiff while she was in an extremely fragile condition, including PTSD and long COVID. All this was done to cover up Mercy Corps' involvement in international criminal activities targeting vulnerable children. Despite over 200 hours of interviews and meetings with Plaintiff from June 2020 through May 2021, the investigative report appears purposely incomplete. Critical facts were omitted, downplayed, or ignored. Furthermore, even when witnesses came forth offering testimony in support of Plaintiff's statements, the Mercy Corps team failed to speak with the majority of them despite repeated requests from Plaintiff. It appears that Mercy Corps team deliberately avoided talking to the perpetrators of the heinous crimes despite having many of their names and locations. These actions demonstrate that uncovering the truth in order to hold the perpetrators accountable was never Mercy Corps' goal. In fact, from November 2020 through summer of 2021, its main focus was on messaging of the investigative report. Mercy Corps put Plaintiff through hell during this time period, using former law enforcement and military interrogators to re-question her about the murder of the Thai girl, repeatedly threatening that she could be sued for defamation over the investigative report, refusing to indemnify or pay for an attorney if she is sued over the investigative report, telling her that if they are sued, that all of her personal journals would be exposed to the public. They also threatened that one of the perpetrators in particular could sue her. Mercy Corps knew that she was terrified of the men who raped her. By January 2021, the abuse was so damaging that she needed an additional therapist to deal with the onslaught. It took weeks for Mercy Corps to agree to another therapist, and the abuse continued. As a child, Plaintiff had been suicidal or self-harmed at times to deal with the overwhelming and unrelenting trauma. Enduring the shame and horror of Mercy Corps' psychological manipulation from June 2020 through May 2021, Plaintiff's PTSD increased with a vengeance. The interrogations inflicted more torture on Plaintiff. As a result, Plaintiff engaged in self-harm to deal with the abuse. She also became depressed, had repeated suicidal thoughts and impulses, including jumping off a high-rise building, burning herself, and drowning. In the 1990s, Plaintiff told women at a prayer meeting about her father's abuse. One of these women told her husband, who is a lawyer at Davis Wright Tremaine. Bob Newell also practiced at the firm, which provided pro bono legal services to Mercy Corps and Ellsworth Culver's personal law firm, and was Ellsworth Culver's personal law firm. Newell was also a Mercy Corps board member. Newell intimidated and threatened Plaintiff by calling her and demanding to know if she would share that the allegation was true. The board president, Raymond Ray Vath, psychiatrist and eating disorder specialist, was a founding board member of Mercy Corps and a friend of Ellsworth Culver. Vath appointed himself, co-founder Dan O'Neill, and Bob Newell to form a committee to conduct an investigation. The investigation was biased, abusive, protected victims, and had a predetermined outcome absolving the attacker of a crime. The committee consulted with Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, now famous for testifying in lawsuits about false memories, for legal teams such as those representing Giselle Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein. Dr. Loftus did not see any medical or counseling records or interview Plaintiff. The committee decided Plaintiff was experiencing false memories. To counter this conclusion, Plaintiff produced medical and child welfare records documenting the child sexual abuse she suffered. Newell claimed they did not see these records. Vath appeared to have gone along with Culver's defense that Plaintiff was sexually abused by a different man. Two women who accompanied Plaintiff when she was interviewed in the 1990s have characterized the meeting as contentious. Vath told Plaintiff he had worked on many similar cases and did not believe her allegations. The investigation concluded with the board being informed that Ellsworth Culver was merely guilty of being a poor financial manager. Despite this conclusion, the board instructed Culver to take a 30-day leave and see a therapist recommended by Vath. Culver bragged that the new CEO, Neil Kenny Geyer, could never force him to do it, and didn't. Mercy Corps leadership was restructured, but Culver remained at Mercy Corps as senior executive VP until his death 10 years later. He continued to enjoy salary increases, cash bonuses, and ongoing access to children to rape or attack during humanitarian aid trips. In 2018, Plaintiff again approached Mercy Corps and again was brushed off by Mercy Corps' lawyers. At first, CEO Kenny Geyer lied and denied having any information about the allegations. The Oregonian exposed this lie in its award-winning documentary No Mercy in 2019. Mercy Corps allowed Kenny Geyer to resign. Plaintiff had a panic attack when she heard of his resignation because she had been primed to protect Mercy Corps' employees. It took over an hour for her to stop crying. For its part, the board issued a press release praising him. They also quietly wrote him a check for $437,000. Approximately 1 year later, the payout was to become public via tax records. The day prior to publication, Mary Wheat informed Plaintiff of the payout and said no lawyers were involved. She claimed it was a standard business practice. This was very upsetting to Plaintiff, given his cover-up of the abuse and prior defamatory statements about her. What Mercy Corps hid from Plaintiff was that they also paid Kenny Geyer $377,000 in 2020, even though he had only earned $132,350 by the time he resigned. So it appeared that the full payout to Kenny Geyer was a whopping $682,347. This rewarding payout and continued deceit is traumatizing to Plaintiff. From approximately May 2020 through August 2020, the Mercy Corps team promised to seek the truth, put the pieces of the puzzle together, to find perpetrators, to find other victims, and help prevent further child abuse. To date, Mercy Corps boasts of using trauma-informed and survivor-centered techniques during the investigation. These were false and empty claims. From approximately May 2020 until August 2020, Mercy Corps repeatedly assured Plaintiff she had an army of supporters and experts behind her to help protect her and other children in the future. Plaintiff was lured in by these promises and by her lifelong brainwashing that she had a moral duty to protect Mercy Corps and its beneficiaries. They were aware that she had been brainwashed as a part of the abuse to protect Mercy Corps. Instead, they used and abused her to bury the horrific truth. From June 2020 through May 2021, Mercy Corps, including former sex abuse law enforcement officer Mary Wheat, manipulated and deceived Plaintiff to gain exclusive access to her explosive information. In June 2020, Plaintiff provided Alex Partners celebrity investigator Kathleen McChesney with journals on the condition that she would get regular debriefing on the status of the review. After she turned over all the documents, they only gave her one debriefing, despite her repeated requests and clear anxiety. Plaintiff made it clear to the Mercy Corps team that this caused her severe anxiety and fear. Still, they continued to break promises. In the fall of 2020, after they got what they wanted and realized the enormity of the potential for exposure, Mercy Corps abruptly cut her off and changed the entire dynamic and methods of communication. From that point forward, they focused on burying the story and avoiding litigation. The icing out of her by her army of supporters and experts, right after disclosing highly sensitive information about specific perpetrators, caused Plaintiff great fear, emotional distress, and severe depression like she has never felt in her life. She began engaging in self-harm and had suicidal thoughts. For her part, Cordestani had boasted to Plaintiff, the first rule of PR is to get out in front of the story. She even thanked Plaintiff for giving them that opportunity. The only person who benefited from a fast delivery of the investigative report was Mercy Corps. Despite plaintiffs pleading for more time, Mercy Corps unduly pressured her to speed her testimony as if an official deadline existed. Mary Wheat used nefarious tactics such as telling plaintiff things like, "This is your only chance to tell your story," or "I can ask for more time but cannot guarantee it," or "I only have this team now, and if you don't tell us everything, you won't have the chance later because the team will be gone." Plaintiff responded, "I'm going as fast as I can, I promise," and suffered more anxiety due to the artificially imposed deadlines. Interestingly, plaintiff was repeatedly informed of the deadline changes after the fact. She was often not given a reason, and the inconsistent communication and refusal to give her more time added to her fear and anxiety. We'd also threatened by saying things like, "I'd hate for you to lose this opportunity to build relationships with people at Mercy Corps. You're not going to have it again." When plaintiff expressed fear or asked questions, Wheat said things like, "I can help you out, but you can't go to my boss and tell on me anymore." Plaintiff had confided to Cordestani that Wheat was behaving unreasonably at some point. Plaintiff took this as a threat that Wheat would cut her off if she ever complained again. This created more fear and anxiety. During this time, plaintiff suffered from ongoing PTSD, anxiety issues, depression, and long coronavirus. It appeared that Mercy Corps' wildly inappropriate and insensitive tactic was intended to take advantage of an individual who should have been in bed recovering from coronavirus. She reported her inability to breathe, inability to think or communicate clearly, and numerous other COVID-related symptoms. At one point, she suffered neurological symptoms that warranted an MRI, and 2 aneurysms were discovered. This warranted another scan to confirm the aneurysms. Plaintiff had to ask for a break from the interrogations to get the second scan and was clearly anxious about it. They charged ahead regardless. Mercy Corps stepped far beyond acceptable boundaries to extract information from plaintiff. Mercy Corps also purposefully made it very difficult for plaintiff to provide input about the investigative report, kept her waiting, and continually changed the status, making the future unpredictable. Much of plaintiff's input was rejected. The investigative report was a whitewash, and despite plaintiff's specific requests, Mercy Corps glossed over details surrounding the horrific murder of a Thai girl. The investigative report also neglected to note that plaintiff was sodomized and raped by Mercy Corps leaders and a Middle Eastern man in multiple rooms of the Mercy Corps headquarters. Plaintiff was also trafficked for favors to well-known emissaries while on Mercy Corps property and trips. These cases were never investigated, despite Mercy Corps' team's brutal and excruciatingly detailed interrogations. The investigative report selectively notes that the bad guys are gone, signifying that there's no more threat and giving a false sense of security to others. Mercy Corps is diverting attention from the fact that known perpetrators are potentially raping and abusing more children and enabled by Mercy Corps. This caused foreseeable harm in that the plaintiff disclosed from the start that her goal was to find perpetrators, find survivors, and prevent further sexual abuse of children. Had plaintiff known Mercy Corps' true intentions, she never would have participated in this harmful process, and she might not still be suffering from long COVID fear and anxiety and distress. Much of the investigative report criticizes the tactics used by those who originally investigated plaintiff's story in 1990s. However, Mercy Corps again used many of the same techniques. For example, Mercy Corps did not allow plaintiff to have legal counsel or other advocates present during the 100 hours of interviews, despite the fact plaintiff was ill with coronavirus and severely distressed. The harm caused by these tactics was known and foreseeable. During the investigation, and after plaintiff named her abusers, Mercy Corps brought in an older white male lawyer, Warren Hamill from Venable LLC, to sit in on meetings. Mercy Corps was aware that plaintiff's abusers were powerful, older white men. Hamill had no apparent experience working with victims like plaintiff. His bio notes that he chairs Venable's investigations in white-collar defense practice. The bio notes Warren conducts internal investigations and aggressively defends individual, corporate, and nonprofit clients in a wide range of white-collar and environmental criminal defense and civil enforcement litigation. Clients also seek his advice on compliance and internal controls, including information governance, managing whistleblower issues, FCPA compliance, and Sarbanes-Oxley-related matters. Before joining Venable in 2002, Warren served as an assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Maryland and was chief of environmental crimes and enforcement for that office. The bio notes, he has led internal investigations from a broad range of clients, including most recently a U.S.-based financial services and insurance company, an India-based generic pharmaceutical company, and the South American subsidiary of a major U.S.-based retailer. None of these clients are individual rape victims. They are high-paying corporations. Further, the bio notes that Hamill's international international experience, yet it does not appear to be used that experience to defend plaintiff or find the perpetrators who raped her and other girls. In addition to the demands of managing a national practice, recent investigations and enforcement actions have taken Warren to locations in Europe, South and Central Asia, Singapore, Africa, and India. Venable LLC's website further illustrates his mission to protect corporate clients. We regularly assist management in its decisions related to the investigation, such as those regarding whether the company should discipline or terminate employees involved, how to deal with employees who may be whistleblowers or otherwise cooperating with a government entity, what remedial measures are warranted and how to implement them, whether to self-report any conduct discovered, and whether to waive attorney-client privilege. None of these capabilities represent plaintiff in any way. They serve their paying client, Mercy Corps. Hamill sat in on meetings with plaintiff even though Mercy Corps knew he intimidated her. His presence successfully silenced her and triggered her PTSD. In early 2020, Mercy Corps CEO Chaja Doyen McKenna, Kordestani, and other high-level Mercy Corps individuals, including board member Iman Dakil, acted as if they were friends, were on the same team, partners, and cared about plaintiff. They even said plaintiff was a part of the Mercy Corps family. After the main interrogations ended in August 2020, they denied her any crumb of justice, broke promises, abruptly shunned her, and continued to bury systemic child rape and abuse. Mercy Corps twisted reality to support the sadistic perpetrators and their enablers with rewards such as large cash payouts, legal protection, and public praise. Privately, in October 2020, Kordestani acknowledged the severity of the crimes by saying she was worried she was dealing with a pedophile ring. While Mercy Corps spent over 100 many back-to-back hours interrogating her on the issue of victims and perpetrators, the mental endurance battle which almost killed her more than once as she became suicidal and walked into traffic in a haze of PTSD where the investigator had to pull her out of the way and joked that they had to hold on to her arm. There was less than a page in the entire 33-page report on the content of these interviews. In April-May of 2021, plaintiff went into hiding in another state out of fear of being harmed as a result of the investigative report being released to the board and attorneys. She was specifically afraid of one of the perpetrators coming after her. When she asked for a security system on her home, Kordestani suggested plaintiff pay for it. Kordestani also said she should just call police and tell them about her fears. We repeatedly told plaintiff that her fears were unfounded. This flippant attitude and gaslighting from her army of supporters caused severe fear and anxiety. When the investigative report was released to the board of directors and plaintiff, she was alone in hiding and had a breakdown. She felt the massive weight of her report about the abuse and murder. She created an altar on the beach in memory of those killed and abused at the hands of Mercy Corps. When the investigative report was issued publicly on May 19, 2021, plaintiff was again alone, in hiding, in a hotel room. The whitewashing of the truth being released was devastating. This was the beginning of a deep depression. Compounding the harm, shortly after the report was released, Doyen McKenna disparaged and defamed plaintiff in a presentation to 5,000 Mercy Corps employees and members by falsely claiming that the names of perpetrators were not released because plaintiff did not want them released. This made Mercy Corps appear like heroes, survivor-centered. This lie caused more distress for plaintiff. In May 2021, Matt Dolan told 5,000 Mercy Corps employees that Mercy Corps team could not identify other victims because they lacked enough information to find them. This was false, hurtful, and defamatory. Plaintiff desperately wanted to find other victims and had given the Mercy Corps team both photos and locations. Plaintiff had given them her journals containing dates, towns, names, and descriptions. In the beginning, Mercy Corps team told plaintiff that it had the technology and resources to find victims in Honduras and indicated that they were willing to do it, and plaintiff agreed to assist. However, they did not follow up on the leads. Plaintiff did not see this presentation until August 2021. We supervised her as she cried through the presentation. At that point, it was clear to her that she had been duped. Mercy Corps also disparaged and defamed plaintiff, blaming her for its failure to track down victims. Yet plaintiff had supplied the names and locations of Mercy Corps never investigated. As noted by Mercy Corps staff, pedophiles do not just stop raping. Mercy Corps staff and board knowingly paved the way for these men to continue raping children. This was the opposite intent of plaintiff when she agreed to participate in the investigation. Mercy Corps' outside lawyers, without input from the plaintiff, hired Alex Partners, formerly Free Group International Solutions, LLC, AlixPartners' own press release describes Free as a global risk management firm serving in the areas of business integrity and compliance, safety and security, and investigations and due diligence. FGIS is a dynamic company with experience, credibility, and global reach that allow us to deliver prompt and effective solutions. FGIS has built a reputation for working closely with each client to efficiently assess their circumstances, provide independent counsel, and jointly develop or enhance effective risk mitigation strategies. Mercy Corps supposedly hired AlixPartners to investigate child sex abuse, trafficking, and murder. However, it appears their real goal was protecting Mercy Corps leaders through FGIS's risk mitigation strategy playbook. Both AlixPartners and Mercy Corps boasted about the use of trauma-informed and survivor-centered techniques. This was proven a bald-faced lie. For example, the request was denied when plaintiff asked to hold the interviews in a place that felt safe to her, like the beach. Instead, the lawyers held the interviews in a hotel like the one where plaintiff and other girls were raped, sodomized, and physically abused. The location triggered plaintiff with flashbacks of the attacks she endured at the hands of rapists and inflamed her already terrible PTSD and anxiety issues. From June 2020 through January 2021, the Mercy Corps team interrogated plaintiff with probing, provocative, and highly insensitive questions, including details about another child's rape and murder. These interrogations caused plaintiff to remember, for the first time, much of the abuse she suffered at the hands of Mercy Corps leaders. The marathon questioning also triggered memories of the identities of her abusers. Mercy Corps orchestrated the conversation in a manner that any expert would know would trigger a victim's PTSD. They succeeded. The interrogation was callous and brutal. For example, they asked the plaintiff to describe the smell of the room and perpetrators, what she heard, the temperature of the body, and whether the Thai girl defecated or urinated on herself. These questions and details were completely unnecessary, yet Mercy Corps continued to probe for them. These questions were wildly out of line and tortured plaintiff again by making her revisit incidents in detail that understandably traumatized her as a child. For example, Mercy Corps team was determined to interrogate her twice on the death of the Thai girl. Why? They wanted to report that the Thai girl might have died. When plaintiff objected, they interrogated her again, made her defend herself, and tried to make her question the truth. Mercy Corps refused to investigate the murder despite obtaining substantial and specific detail from the plaintiff during their wildly inappropriate interrogation. This is another excellent example of how Mercy Corps hired AlixPartners to protect its interests rather than seeking justice for plaintiff and other child victims who suffered at the hands of sadistic pedophiles protected by Mercy Corps. From June 2020 through August 2020, the team interrogated plaintiff so relentlessly, over 100 hours of day-long interviews, the plaintiff curled into a fetal position and put a blanket over her head in an effort to cope with flashbacks and panic attacks. Rather than halting the interviews, Mercy Corps' team encouraged her to breathe, gave her candy, but continued their aggressive questioning. In August 2020, plaintiff contemplated taking her own life. Plaintiff was disassociating from flashbacks as evidenced by her almost walking into traffic in front of the Mercy Corps team during their joint lunch breaks and more. Both Kordestani and Wheat later admitted to plaintiff that they recognized she was suicidal. Kordestani also said she saw the light go out of plaintiff and that she had gone dark. Kordestani said this hurt to see and she hoped plaintiff would get her spark back someday. Yet the abuse continued. Mercy Corps' team repeatedly badgered plaintiff with other highly sensitive questions. Before the interviews, plaintiff warned the team that these lines of questioning about her past rapes made her mentally relive the torture she endured in her childhood. She also shared how frightened she was living through a similar series of questions in the 1990s when the reality of Mercy Corps' rape of children was first coming to light. Mercy Corps showed no sensitivity to this, as demonstrated by their questions and aggressive interview tactics. In August 2020, AlixPartners attorney Kristen Tovias interrogated plaintiff and adopted an intimidating and aggressive approach to her questioning. Plaintiff had to step away and had a panic attack in the bathroom. When she returned, plaintiff told Tovias that the aggressive style was triggering and that she had a panic attack. Tovias said she would change her style. However, she continued with the same aggressive style. A junior investigator finally interrupted the inappropriate grilling. During the various interrogations from June 2020 through January 2021, plaintiff was not permitted to have a lawyer, a therapist, an advocate, or any support person present. In August 2020, plaintiff shared that a high-profile perpetrator sexually abused her during her childhood during a Mercy Corps-sponsored event. Mercy Corps did not investigate or otherwise pursue the predator. In the 1990s, Mercy Corps interviewed a witness who, as a child, saw Ellsworth Culver commit sexual crimes, including sex acts with children on Mercy Corps property. She also confirmed that she saw child pornography. The Mercy Corps team minimized this to the investigative report. It was clear that the witness was also a victim, but Mercy Corps leaders had not reported it to law enforcement. Mercy Corps leaders are also responsible to report incidents to USAID, AID, and/or other international grant funding organizations. Plaintiff had no evidence that the reports were made. In September 2020, Mercy Corps informed Plaintiff that they planned to report her recollections of child sexual abuse and the names of the perpetrators involved to the FBI, with corroborating evidence it had uncovered. However, Mercy Corps refused to allow her to accompany them when they allegedly made this report or to consider any kind of compromise solution. For example, Plaintiff could join for only the most relevant parts of the meeting or even enter the building. According to Mercy Corps, it would be more difficult to talk about the case if Plaintiff was there, and told her that they were the only ones with clearance. As an insulting consolation, Mercy Corps leaders allowed Plaintiff to view candles at Mercy Corps' headquarters for the victims. The FBI has never contacted Plaintiff. Mercy Corps installed dread and attempted to silence Plaintiff by repeatedly stating she could be sued for defamation if she should speak out about Mercy Corps' involvement in systemic rape and abuse of children worldwide. Mercy Corps' reverse accusation tactics deliberately terrorized Plaintiff. They even provided her with a defamation lawyer to convince her that the threat of lawsuit against her was imminent. Plaintiff followed Board Chair Kordestani's private advice to ask for indemnification. She did, and Mercy Corps refused her request to provide her with any indemnification or payment for a lawyer should she be sued over the investigation report. This, along with being cut off from communication, being treated like a dangerous, dehumanized risk, made Plaintiff feel betrayed by her army of supporters and that she was on her own to deal with any retaliation. Psychological manipulation tactics created fear in Plaintiff already suffering from long coronavirus and PTSD. Mercy Corps took advantage of Plaintiff to dilute an extremely damaging story that would publicly shame high-profile Mercy Corps staff and board members. Since major Mercy Corps donors did not realize they were financing an international ring of abusive pedophiles, the organization did all possible to bury the information. Failing complete cover-up attempts, Mercy Corps also took steps to rebrand itself as a trustworthy organization that supports and defends victims like Plaintiff. They had the opposite intentions. In addition to Mercy Corps' fear tactics, they used Plaintiff through manipulative tactics to prevent the story from spreading. To assist Mercy Corps in sabotaging Plaintiff's story from further visibility, Mercy Corps hired Vox Global for crisis management efforts to protect and salvage Mercy Corps' reputation as needed. Vox's website states its mission when hired for this type of activity. It's not whether your organization will face crisis, it's when. In this crucial moment, you need experts at your side. We help identify vulnerabilities, plan scenarios, and respond quickly and effectively. We'll help take back control, recover your reputation, and position you for future success. The site offers further specifics about their experience. A failure to respond quickly leads to rampant speculation, damaging careers and bottom lines. Vox had experience protecting high-paying corporate clients, but they mentioned no credentials whatsoever as advocates for victims of rape, sodomy, and violence like Plaintiff. Furthermore, Vox site states a specific three-step methodology used to recover reputation, or from Plaintiff's experience, the approach Vox used to mitigate her reputational risk to Mercy Corps. A. We discover the facts, uncover the context, and classify the gravity of the situation. Then we define the operational measures needed immediately. In practice, though, Vox failed to explore all the facts and context related to Plaintiff. The only gravity they addressed was that of Mercy Corps. B. A crisis situation can quickly become a blame game. We identify the appropriate strategy and engage all stakeholders transparently throughout the entire process. Yes, the Mercy Corps situation did involve a blame game. Mercy Corps pointed the blame at Plaintiff. We drive constant communication with all stakeholders, listening and responding swiftly to issues and concerns. Plaintiff's needs were tertiary consideration at best. Mercy Corps portrays Plaintiff as a front woman for their public relations campaign to cover up and minimize the most egregious forms of child abuse imaginable. For example, Mercy Corps involved Plaintiff in press releases, website news, etc. After securing Plaintiff's detailed accounts during interrogations, Mercy Corps controlled how much of that information was released and when. Plaintiff told Kordestani she was ill-equipped and felt unsafe choosing a public relations person. Therefore, Kordestani asked Vox to recommend another PR person for her, but that person lacked the appropriate skills and information. That PR person did not even have a national press list, let alone the contacts Vox had at national media outlets. This was an obvious, deliberate, and pre-planned attempt to kill the story rather than share the truth. No PR person on a national matter would be caught without a national press list, especially considering a PR person's most critical role in media relations. Certainly, Vox knew she was in an inappropriate choice for the job. Plaintiff's PR person was so terrified from Mercy Corps' threats that she was wary to reach out to reporters. Trauma expert and silence breaker Louise Godbold requested PR help from SKDK, the Time's Up PR firm. SKDK contacted Mike Baker, a New York Times reporter. Since the reporter was on deadline, the only source and verification for his story the next day was Mercy Corps report, which provided a filtered and whitewashed version of events. By controlling reporters' access to information, only a few reporters had an opportunity to write about that. After the first wave of articles, the story loses public momentum because many reporters consider a topic already covered as old news. Mercy Corps effectively killed the story. When an employee asked what Mercy Corps was doing that benefited Plaintiff, Matt Dolan said, "We're survivor-centered, and she has had access to counseling and support the whole time." This was a falsehood. Plaintiff's access to counseling and support was severely limited by Mercy Corps. In a webcast presentation to 5,000 Mercy Corps employees about the investigation and its conclusion, Mercy Corps' team disparaged Plaintiff, dodged questions, and misled the staff throughout the presentation. They also prevented Plaintiff from attending or having a copy of the presentation materials. When we later boasted to Plaintiff that they had prepared how to answer or dodge questions during the webcast so as not to give away any perpetrators. This was a premeditated tactic used to protect perpetrators. The moderator also filtered questions to control what was answered and what was said. The investigation is and was falsely advertised by Mercy Corps as external and independent. In reality, Mercy Corps employee Wheat was involved in every step as Plaintiff's handler. Wheat used her role to intimidate and gaslight Plaintiff and to protect Mercy Corps at Plaintiff's expense. Wheat also stepped in as an interrogator once Plaintiff started naming names. Wheat rushed Plaintiff through the investigation, made her feel guilty for asking for information or support, and threatened Plaintiff. Not only did Plaintiff fear Wheat, Kordestani confided to Plaintiff that she also feared Wheat. The selection of Wheat as Plaintiff's handler, and often her only point of contact, was strategic. Wheat kept Plaintiff in fear. Falsely, Mercy Corps claims its first concern in an investigation is for the survivor and their safety, health, and well-being. The defamation lawyer Mercy Corps paid to help Plaintiff overlooked the egregious behavior. Once again, Plaintiff was left alone to read all the legal documents and advocate for herself while suffering from the effects of COVID. This inflicted further stress and anxiety on Plaintiff, who was left alone to defend herself against Mercy Corps and its hired guns. In the summer of 2020, Mercy Corps began to treat Plaintiff like the opposition rather than a partner or teammate. Their unprofessional conduct became worse after they extracted her information. This further antagonized Plaintiff rather than supporting her. The investigative report falsely claimed they followed protocol by not providing Mercy Corps board with the specific names of perpetrators. In reality, Alex Partners informed Kordestani and Beth DeHamel of the identity of another Mercy Corps leader who had raped Plaintiff. Kordestani then informed board members Iman Dakil, Scott Brown, Robert Boca, and CEO candidate Doyen McKenna before she was even hired, and members of the Vox PR team. Kordestani confided that she was not sure whether to report the perpetrator and feared being sued by Mercy Corps board of directors. Kordestani also told Plaintiff that it was not safe to disclose the identity of the perpetrator because there were leaks on the board, and she knew one in particular. This terrified Plaintiff, who already felt unsafe. In October 2020, Kordestani discovered the identity of a third Mercy Corps perpetrator who is also alive. Plaintiff lives in fear that these men continue to rape children and that they may come after her. One had already attempted to contact her. We told Plaintiff that she needed to inform Doyen McKenna's assistant, Mercy Corps internal PR person, and an internal HR person of the names of several perpetrators. Moreover, Wheat was informed that the identities of every single perpetrator as they were named. Plaintiff asked to be present when all these people were informed, but Wheat refused. Plaintiff was terrified of the reactions of people knowing these identities. Wheat told plaintiff to be fair to them so they can process the news. Plaintiff had to process it alone and in fear. Plaintiff panicked while waiting for people to be informed. This was not survivor-centered. Although the insiders were informed, it does not appear that law enforcement was properly informed. In September 2021, more examples of Mercy Corps' effort to bury problems, reward staff for helping do it, and to distance the organization from the crimes came to light. Joya McKenna disclosed to plaintiff that Mercy Corps was considering rebranding itself under a new name. This was an obvious attempt to distance Mercy Corps from its roots rife in child rape and murder. It would also make it harder for other victims to identify the organization and its leaders. Plaintiff expressed her anger with this idea, noting that survivors will have a harder time finding justice. In September 2021, Mercy Corps pushed plaintiff to agree that only 1 year of therapy would address all her mental health needs relating to the investigation. This small window of time is ridiculous considering the amount of trauma caused by the investigation and remembering the identities of her abusers. Mercy Corps also tried to limit the types of treatment she could receive. Mercy Corps agreed that some of the prescribed therapy was unnecessary and even mocked it. Mercy Corps made plaintiff defend her need for treatment. This caused more stress. Cortisani callously told plaintiff, "This is just how business works." As a reward for Wheat's aggressive and manipulative tactics against plaintiff, Mercy Corps promoted her to interim chief of staff in September 2021. According to Wheat's LinkedIn page, she remains in that position today. Her verbiage describing that role brags about her experience and completely whitewashes her role in protecting Mercy Corps' leaders rather than plaintiff. Her LinkedIn includes the experience below. Experience in global safeguarding, investigations, and crisis management. Managed safeguarding priorities and initiatives, conducted and supervised all types of global investigations, insisted in the restructuring of the investigations and ethics team at Mercy Corps, provided key leadership and management of high-profile organizational crisis and historical sexual abuse investigation involving the organization's founder. More than 30 years of public sector, law enforcement, international consulting, and military work, including international projects for USAID, INL, DAI, PADF, and the Asia Foundation, and ICITAP. Mercy Corps used psychological interrogation tactics on plaintiff. Mercy Corps team knows psychological torture tactics given their backgrounds with the FBI, law enforcement, and the military. Reed, a firm with experience in interrogation tactics, provides an expert overview of interrogation techniques used commonly against criminal suspects. Mercy Corps used many of these techniques against plaintiff, yet she was not a suspect in any crime whatsoever. According to Reed's list of never-do items during interrogation, several were used by Mercy Corps against plaintiff. Do not threaten the subject with any physical harm or inevitable consequences. Fact. Mercy Corps attempted to intimidate plaintiff by repeatedly telling her she could be sued for defamation. Fact. During interrogation, Mercy Corps reinforced plaintiff's risk of a defamation suit against her and the consequences of her statements. For example, they falsely claimed that her private journals would become public. Mercy Corps seemed more concerned about pushing their fear tactics than identifying perpetrators or victims. Fact. Plaintiff was repeatedly threatened by Mercy Corps' team, who pushed her unfairly and inappropriately with statements like, "This is your only chance to tell us what happened. You need to tell us now. This chance is not going to happen again. You have a great team now, not later. It won't matter if you tell us something later." Do not conduct interrogations for excessively long periods. Fact. Plaintiff endured over 200 hours of intense questioning, meetings, and full-day interrogations over multiple days in a row while suffering complications from coronavirus. Do not deny the subject the opportunity to satisfy physical needs. Fact. Suffering with COVID complications, plaintiff was interviewed remotely in places like her car. During the marathon interrogations, plaintiff had no access to a restroom. This left plaintiff no options other than to urinate in a jar. Fact. Plaintiff was sick, and she should not have been interrogated when she physically required bed rest. Exercise special cautions when questioning juveniles or individuals with mental or psychological impairments. Fact. Plaintiff was interrogated while suffering from severe PTSD and anxiety. Fact. During interrogations and when they ended, therapists or psychologists were not made available to plaintiff. Mercy Corps' interrogators simply walked away from plaintiff, leaving her completely alone to suffer the effects. After a particularly distressing session, they told her to call a friend for support and left. Fact. Mercy Corps' actions threw plaintiff into flashbacks, PTSD, and panic attacks to such a degree that she vomited after some interviews, curled up into the shower, hid underneath a table, in addition to crippling fear, sadness, anxiety, pain, and suicidal thoughts. The confession is not the end of the investigation. Investigate the confession details to establish the authenticity of the subject's statement. In fact, plaintiff had nothing to confess, but was still subject to brutal and repetitive lines of questioning. Mercy Corps was inconsistent throughout the investigation, and plaintiff never knew what to expect from their questions and approach. They would make promises and not follow through. For example, Wheat stressed that Alec's partners, investigators, did not have time to follow through on its promises to grant plaintiff's basic risk requests and make plaintiff feel unreasonable for asking. Open communication was discouraged and made complicated. It is unclear whether any of plaintiff's statements to Wheat were shared as promised. Plaintiff often suffered anticipatory anxiety waiting for the team to respond to reasonable questions. Wheat also made plaintiff feel guilty about hurting the feelings of others who had heard about the horrors she suffered. For example, Wheat told plaintiff how hard it was for Kordestani to hear about the suffering because Kordestani had her own daughter. Wheat even asked plaintiff whether she just wanted to hurt Mercy Corps employees. Wheat repeatedly told plaintiff it was her job to consider the feelings of others and implied plaintiff should too. Clearly, the survivor's feelings did not take precedent. Wheat also told plaintiff she should not show Kordestani, Emin Dakil, or anyone at Mercy Corps the painting plaintiff created illustrating her experiences with the Thai girl. This reinforced plaintiff's feelings of guilt and fear about the effects her journals and other information related to her attacks had on others. Wheat was well aware of plaintiff's fears and used them to silence her and keep her fearful. When plaintiff asked for debriefs at the end of the interrogations, Wheat told plaintiff to respect the time of others and especially consider Matt Dolan being on East Coast time. Again, the team manipulated plaintiff to make her feel unreasonable. Mercy Corps' interrogation and behavior were not survivor-centered. The team's interrogation and manipulation tactics proved just the opposite. Mercy Corps also choked off lines of communication between plaintiff and her past contacts at Mercy Corps, such as Doyen McKenna, Kordestani, and Dakil, who were instructed not to communicate with plaintiff. Previously, Kordestani treated plaintiff like a friend and partner, giving her gifts, sharing information, and even photos of her family with plaintiff. Doyen McKenna told plaintiff via a direct Twitter message that she had an open-door policy. They spoke on the phone and communicated well until Doyen McKenna rescinded that open-door policy. Further, in a Zoom call, Kordestani reminded plaintiff, "We're not friends, and we never can be friends." In May 2021, she said in front of others, "I'll use my privilege, money, and power when you sue me for not supporting you." This was both heartbreaking and humiliating for plaintiff. The interrogation tactics and stress forced upon plaintiff surfaced all the horrors she endured in her youth and re-triggered her PTSD. At one point, plaintiff suffered neurological problems. Although Mercy Corps team and Kordestani were aware, they continued the interrogations. Among other health problems, plaintiff is still battling the ongoing symptoms of long COVID, which she originally suffered at the time of Mercy Corps' interrogations. In April 2020, Kordestani told plaintiff that the board planned a press release praising Neil Kenny Geyer, who had buried the sexual misconduct and had circulated a memo to approximately 21 staff and board members disparaging plaintiff for reporting sexual abuse in 2018. Kordestani showed plaintiff in the memo which placed all of these leaders on notice of plaintiff's allegations. Plaintiff felt embarrassed, belittled, humiliated, dismissed by the memo, and upset. According to Kordestani, once this was discovered in 2020 by Vestry Late investigation into the 2018 report, a chart was created to determine the amount of responsibility each shared for ignoring the allegations. Kordestani showed plaintiff the chart. Kordestani told plaintiff that executives and board members were forced to resign. Vestry Late kept this embarrassing information out of the report, and Mercy Corps kept it secret from the public, while it boasted about transparency and no intentional wrongdoing by leaders. While Kordestani acknowledged that public praise of Kenny Geyer would inflict harm on plaintiff, Mercy Corps proceeded anyway after an empty apology. While still suffering from severe coronavirus, this news triggered plaintiff's PTSD, and she had difficulty speaking, including stuttering, inability to finish sentences, and she had trouble walking. Plaintiff saw a neurologist who indicated plaintiff had symptoms of brain damage. She failed a cognitive test and was tested for encephalitis. Plaintiff was mostly bedridden. Regardless, the Mercy Corps team charged ahead with the cruelty, and plaintiff suffered through it because she had been primed to allow abuse from Mercy Corps her entire life. They made plaintiff feel like she had no choice. She had to help them. Mercy Corps leaders like Kordestani often excused their behavior by telling plaintiff they had fiduciary duties. However, they breached their fiduciary duties to the organization by putting Mercy Corps at risk of litigation, harming its reputation through unethical conduct, including risking the life of a victim, in order to bury serious problems in the organization and to promote their personal reputations. Claims for relief, intentional infliction of emotional distress. As alleged in this complaint, defendant's behavior was intended to inflict severe emotional distress on plaintiff, and severe distress was certain or substantially certain to result from defendant's behavior. Defendant's intentional, outrageous, and extreme behavior was an extraordinary transgression of the bounds of socially tolerable conduct and exceeded any reasonable limit of social toleration and caused plaintiff to experience severe and ongoing emotional harm, especially in light of the special relationship between defendant and plaintiff and the power differential between defendant and plaintiff. Accordingly, plaintiff seeks a judgment in her favor against defendant, holding defendant liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress, $1 nominal damages, attorney's fees, costs, and disbursement. Plaintiff intends to amend this complaint before trial to include a claim for punitive damages in an amount sufficient to deter powerful corporate entities from engaging in similar tactics in the future. Plaintiff respectfully requests a trial by jury. Plaintiff seeks relief against Mercy Corps as requested above and for any other relief this court may determine as fair. Plaintiff reserves the right to amend this complaint to adjust the claims for compensation and damages and to add claims and additional defendants, including claims for punitive damages. Some of the complaint's allegations are based on the memory of witnesses, which may later prove to be inaccurate in parts, and so this complaint may later be amended before trial to conform the allegations to the evidence obtained throughout the case. This complaint is made on personal knowledge as to the plaintiff's actions and based on information and belief as to the actions of others. Kim Sordeal and Michael Fuller from Portland. Thank you so much.